So it looks like the world of indie horror games has a brand new headliner, and its name is Poppy Playtime. In the now decade that's passed since Five Nights at Freddy's basically created what we now call mascot horror, a ton of contenders have entered the ring to varying levels of success. But back in 2021, we got what might be the strongest new mascot horror series since Five Nights at Freddy's, Poppy Playtime. Love it or hate it, call it brain rot if you want, but this game blew up and has really captured the attention of indie horror fans and theorists everywhere. And they managed to do all that with a chapter 1 that was only like 45 minutes long. But you know, the game had a cool setting, a lot of intrigue and world building, a fun core gameplay mechanic, that is to say, a gameplay mechanic at all, and most importantly, a fantastic monster design. And as we're now on the cusp of the game's highly anticipated 4th chapter dropping in January, I figured, oh yeah, I should probably play this. So let's just dive right in and see if I can survive Poppy Playtime. So the game boots up and we are, us, I guess. Just some random person, no face, no name, no tax identification number, just a human being who is alive. And we're entering our former workplace, the old abandoned factory of Playtime Co., a toy company known for such classic, totally not terrifying toys such as Huggy Wuggy, Mommy Longlegs, and the little doll who's just like a real girl, Poppy Playtime. That's the name of the game! Now the reason we're here is because of this note we received on Playtime Co.'s stationery. It says, everyone thinks the staff disappeared 10 years ago. We're still here, find the flower. A pretty upsetting note to receive, no doubt. Not because of the ominous message or anything, but because of that apostrophe. Worry. Yikes. Anyway, we make our way to the old factory, and right away, I'm getting pure Bendy and the Ink Machine vibes. You know, abandoned factory that used to make some kind of kids' entertainment product, now totally run down, yet seemingly housing many disturbing secrets. I've definitely seen this before. Except back then, I was seeing it all in sepia tone. Ugh. There's not much to do here right now. I look around, find a VHS tape that plays a vaguely threatening security message, and other than that, it's just a bunch of doors that I can't open. This one has a keypad though, and after searching around for a color code of some kind, I was able to get inside and pick up literally the entire game. This is the Playtime Co. Grab Pack, and literally every single bit of the gameplay in Poppy Playtime revolves around this thing. You get a toy hand that you can extend super far out to grab stuff, and that also acts as a key to unlock certain doors. We only got the one hand for the pack right now, but that is enough to get us past the reception area and... oh. Hello, sir. This is Huggy Wuggy. Yes, I have to say these names throughout the entire video. He's one of the most popular Playtime Co. toys, and the single character from this game that you have almost certainly seen somewhere, whether you've played Poppy Playtime or not. Legit, I see plushies of this guy at kiosks at my local mall, and I know that sometime soon, this guy's gonna look a lot less friendly and probably start chasing after me, but right now, he's just kinda chilling. I give him a high five. Yeah, we explore a bit more and get more acquainted with the game's mechanics, specifically by using the grab pack to link electrical currents together to restore power to different areas of the factory, which, come to think of it, might be a decent explanation as to why the company shut down. I mean, yeah, giant roaming monsters is one thing, but a kid's toy that literally conducts, channels, and redirects electricity? Dude, the lawsuits write themselves. No wonder this place just shut down. Okay, maybe the monsters are the problem. Yeah, he's gone. So we delve deeper into the factory, solve some puzzles, score the second hand for the grab pack, and finally reach the Make a Friend room. I know exactly what's about to happen in here, and I'm not excited. You gotta activate this machine to get a toy. That toy then acts like a key to unlock this door in the back, unveiling an empty hallway shrouded in darkness. Take a few steps in, and there he is! There's our guy! Woo! Huggy Wuggy just barges in and chases after us. And if he catches us, take a wild guess. That's the one. Luckily, I watch Markiplier. Who's coming? So I knew exactly what to do. As soon as this Wilt from Foster's Home looking thing starts stalking me, I turn around and beeline right to this conveyor belt vent shaft. And now it's a good old-fashioned chase sequence. And even though I've watched plenty of videos of this sequence, I still got turned around a few times and got a few classic jump scares. It really shows how different it is to watch something versus being in it. It's very interesting. But once I make it out of the other side of the vent system, I find myself in this giant chamber? Is that what this is? Is that what you'd call this? It's just kind of this giant open space with catwalks everywhere. I don't really know what the purpose of this is. But no time to think about that. Huggy Wuggy's still on my tail. So we just Ooh. Oh, that one looked rough, dude. I'm sure he's fine. But with Huggy taken care of, I notice a giant flower painted on the wall across the room. That's gotta be the flower mentioned in the note, right? It's the only flower we've seen so far. At the center of the flower is a door that leads to a disturbingly normal hallway, like the kind you'd find in your grandma's house. But it's what we find inside that changes everything. At the end of this hall is a glass case housing a Poppy doll. We open it up, the room goes dark, and we hear Poppy's voice say,
"You opened my case,"
before the credits roll on Chapter 1. Well, not a whole lot actually happened there, so let's just jump right into Chapter 2. Picking up exactly where we left off, like literally, we backtrack our way out of the weird grandma hallways and find ourselves back in the Playtime Factory proper, where we're introduced to two things. One, a new gameplay mechanic where we can use the grab pack arms to swing around, which is funny, because in Chapter 1 I accidentally got tangled up during one of those electricity puzzles, and this happened. Okay. Okay. And now it can happen on purpose. But the other thing we're introduced to is Poppy herself. She's a living doll creature who, unlike everyone else I've met so far, actually doesn't seem to want to kill me. That's a nice change of pace. In fact, she says she knows a way out of here. Some kind of train deeper into the factory that Poppy can get us codes to activate. But right when it seems that things are getting better, Poppy is snatched away by this long noodly arm thing and dragged down a deep dark hole. Well, I mean, we went through a hole, found another hole, and jumped down the hole. A few more rooms and puzzles later, we meet that very same noodly arm thing and the creature it's attached to, Mommy Longlegs. Yet another monster based on a Playtime Co. toy, this one from 1991. It's one of those like rubbery action figures that you're meant to pose however you want, but this Mommy Longlegs is more of a giant creepy spider thing who makes a pretty big statement right away by ripping off my right hand. Ah! I was using that, but instead of killing us dead right then and there, Mommy Longlegs decides to turn all of this into a game. Classic horror villain plan. Toy with your victim for your own amusement, even though they will likely beat your game anyway, and now you're right back to square one, so you just do what you should have done in the first place and attack them. Why even give them the window? So, Mommy Longlegs tells us to push forward and find her 3 different games to play. Each game we win will grant us part of the train code, and if we don't follow the rules, we will be eaten alive. Works for me. And with that, we enter the game station. Huh, funny. For a company called Playtime Co., I wonder why they didn't call it the PlayStation. Oh. Apparently, the game station here was Mommy Longlegs' whole deal back when the factory was up and running. When families came to tour the place, kids could play here, and Mommy Longlegs would guide them through the various different games to play. But if that gangly weirdo wants to disembowel me, she's gonna have to do a bit better than this, because I killed these games. First up was I found a new hand, by the way. This one's green. You can hold an electrical charge. No, it's not a big deal. First up was Musical Memory, which is just a game of Simon Says. What's with all the Simon Says stuff lately? Press the buttons to the corresponding colors within the time limit. That's it. But of course, if you take too long or fail too many times, this big bunny animatronic will come down and kill you. And to be fair, this wasn't like a breeze or anything. I'm playing on a controller, and trying to line up my shots could be a little tricky at times. Plus, the animatronic bunny kept clashing these symbols together, and you could always hear it getting closer and closer, which really added to the stress of it all. And then they tried to get cute about it by adding new colors that were hidden behind you, or things like letters and numbers and random junk like that. So by the end, the whole thing turned into some chaotic nightmare that you're just supposed to completely bail out of. Weirdly enough, the whole thing gave me Undertale vibes, like papyrus traps and stuff like that. But even though I wasn't perfect, nor was I particularly graceful, I managed to get through the whole thing first try and snag the first part of the train code. But I was kind of disappointed I didn't get to see the bunny jump scare though. And I guess I'm not alone there, because Mommy Longlegs is not happy that I beat this game. That's okay. Maybe she'll get the chance to kill me and eat me on the next one. Game number 2 is Whack-A-Wuggy. I'm smack dab in the middle of a room that's full of holes, and I just gotta wait for a bunch of different color Huggy Wuggies to pop out and give them a good smack in the face to send them back from whence they came or whatever. So mechanically, it's kind of the same game as the last one, but I guess a little bit more risky. But even so, I still killed it, man. One try, first try, didn't get jump scared at all. Either I'm getting pretty good at these mascot horror games, or this game is not actually very challenging. So with that done, I gotta get back to the game station. And to do that, I gotta do something that I haven't talked about a whole lot so far, the puzzle solving. And honestly, this might sound kind of weird, but this is what I play these games for. I love the aesthetics, I love the monsters, the scares are really fun, but honestly, I really love just getting some chill downtime to solve puzzles. I I like puzzles. So even though most people would call this section where I'm just trying to use the electric hand thing to open all these doors and clear a path forward, most people would probably call them boring or filler. This is where I'm having the most fun. You might ask why I don't just play puzzle games. Puzzle games are harder than this, and I'm not that smart. And plus, these are the sections where you really start to find those little bits of lore that keep you invested. Like right here. Who was that? Why'd they help me? Why is Jacksepticeye here?
You see, I was heading home for the day when my AFRs realized that I left me bloody wallet in the cafeteria.
Back to the game station, flip a switch, new game! The last of Mommy Longlegs' 3 games is called Statues, and okay, yeah, this is the one I struggled with a bit. It's basically a red light, green light thing, where you're only allowed to move when the music is playing and the lights are off. And you just gotta get from one end of the obstacle course to another, all while being stalked by this fuzzy little weirdo. This is PJ Pugapillar, and he's adorable? I think they forgot to make this one scary. But if he catches up to you, or if you move when you're not supposed to, yeah, you probably could have guessed that one. And it did take me a couple of tries to get through this one. I'm not sure why, but it kind of felt like the controls were starting to work against me a little bit. I certainly hope that does not become an ongoing and foundational problem with the rest of this game. Either way, that's 3 games down. I am victorious! All inferior creatures must cower before me. And I'm now owed the rest of that train code. But Mommy Longlegs is being a bit of a sore loser and starts accusing me of cheating. I would never cheat at a game. If I'ma be bad, I'ma be bad on purpose. And I'ma do it loud. So, after continuing to explore the depths of the factory, which are becoming more and more cave-like the further I go, and after solving a few more puzzles, Mommy Longlegs finally corners me, and we get another proper monster chase sequence. And this was some bull. Honestly, I hated this bit, dude. As soon as this chase sequence started, I had to turn around and backtrack fast, only to find myself being funneled through a bunch of new locations that were previously closed off. Games do this a lot. Yeah, they throw you into high-stakes chase sequences and unfamiliar surroundings, but they use different elements of the environmental design to make sure the player is still able to figure out which way to go without there having to be some, great big arrow pointing them in the right direction. That's exactly what's happening here. Certain areas are walled off now. Last-minute turns get these big bright lights that draw your eye to them, and once I get to this sewage maze, I know which turns to avoid because Mommy Longlegs' long arms start wiggling their way out. And once I get out of the tunnel, okay, I guess scratch that thing about not using arrows. Oops. Yeah, I'm supposed to look up and find this grappling spot, and so they just painted arrows on the wall. Alright. But while all that is well and good, and I am able to find my path forward pretty easily, the game's difficulty here does a freaking moon jump. This whole chase sequence took me 8 different tries to get right. Finding my path through the chase sequence was totally easy, and so was avoiding Mommy Longlegs. But once you get here, the spot with the arrows, you have all of 2 seconds to look up, find the grappling spot, line up your shot, wait for the grab pack arm to extend all the way up, then pull yourself up. I'm not kidding either, man. I counted. It's like 2 seconds and some change. This one bit made the entire sequence nearly impossible for me. You just have no time to actually do anything. Even when I do it right, the window is so small that the game still punishes me. And what makes it so much worse are these loading screens. When you die in Poppy Playtime, first you get jump scared, then the screen goes black, then a cryptic message pops up for a few seconds, then another cryptic message pops up for a few more seconds, then the screen does this surge where everything goes red or white depending on whatever part of the game you're in, then we cut to black again, then a loading screen, and finally you're put back into gameplay and allowed to retry. You know how long all that takes? 21 seconds. You know how long the chase sequence is? 40 seconds. Every time you die, you're forced to sit through a bunch of pointless, unskippable nonsense that's almost as long as the gameplay sequence you're trying to beat. Yeah, I get that they're trying to add to the atmosphere and intrigue of the lore, but I'm sorry, I really don't have the patience for your game theory bait when all I want to do is get past your chase sequence that the game can't even properly handle. Yeah, for some reason, after every few deaths, the game would glitch and all the audio would just completely cut out. I had to hard relaunch the game multiple times because of this. Again, all for this one chase sequence that only lasts 40 seconds. God, okay, rant over for now. Once I finally get past the chase sequence and reloaded my game to get the audio back, how does that even happen? I'm sorry. I make my way to this room with a big shredder, wood chipper thing, flip it on, and as Mommy Longlegs barrels in after me, she gets caught in the machine. And you know what that means. As she's getting minced, she starts screaming about how, quote, he'll make me part of him, before being chopped in half, falling to the ground dead, and getting dragged off by this giant robotic hand. Huh. I didn't know this was a Coraline game. But you know, with her finally out of the way, we find Poppy in the final train code, make our way back to the game station, and get out of here. Except, Poppy decides to be a little bit of a trickster, a bit of a rabble-rouser, if you will. I'm sorry. Suddenly, Poppy says that she needs me to help set things right here at the factory, and that I have become too useful to just let me leave. So she straight up diverts the train to keep me here. And of course, then the train goes haywire and completely crashes. And things were going so well. Chapter 3 time! And whoo boy, this one's a roller coaster. And I don't like roller coasters. I get woozy on the Cars ride. So, Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 begins with, honestly, the most impressive piece of horror I think I've ever seen in one of these kinds of games. It's an episode of a cartoon called The Smiling Critters, which I guess are Playtime Co.'s Care Bears or something like that. The gang's all trying to go to bed in the middle of a storm, but they're all too scared to go to sleep. That is, until their friend Catnap shows up and breathes the breath of all-consuming despair. It's red, like cherries. Or blood. This makes the Smiling Critters go absolutely wild until... Oh, damn. This is all accompanied by a local news clip. We're doing some real analog horror stuff now, alright. Which claims that kids who own the Catnap doll have been reported experiencing violent nightmares. And with that, we've got our monster for this chapter. Catnap, the smiling critter gone rogue. But getting back to me, finally, after the train went off the tracks and crashed, Catnap found us and dumped us down a garbage chute that leads to a massive trash compactor room. And of course, that means the walls are about to start closing in. You know, like in that one sci-fi movie. Mars needs moms. What follows here is a decently lengthy escape sequence that should have been pretty simple, except, for whatever reason, from chapters 2 to 3, the controls have changed. Not massively, but so many of the game's basic controls have been tweaked in these tiny little ways that had a surprisingly big effect on my experience with this chapter. In both chapter 1 and 2, you could toggle between walking or sprinting by just tapping the left control stick. Didn't matter if you were moving when you clicked it, if you clicked it, your speed mode would change. In chapter 3, for some reason, now you have to be moving in order for the toggle to do anything, meaning you essentially have to get a running start in order to start running. And what's worse, you can't just toggle the sprint by tapping the stick anymore. You have to tap and hold the stick for a second in order for the run to start. If you tap it quickly, you'll jolt forward a little like you're about to start running, but then you'll just go right back to walking. You have to press and hold, which is a lot less convenient, especially considering you have to press and hold while pushing the stick forward. But what makes even less sense is toggling the sprint off to just go back to walking. That one still works with a simple tap. You don't have to press and hold for that. Why? Same thing with the crouch. In both chapters before this, if I want to crouch, I just tap the circle button. But now if I do that, I start the crouching animation for a split second, then go right back to standing up. I have to press and hold the circle button, wait for the entire crouch animation to play out, and then it sticks. Less egregious, but still very noticeable. Suddenly, I'm not allowed to pick objects up with the square button anymore. In the first 2 chapters, I thought it was weird that you pick things up with the square button instead of the, grab pack arms. So it's cool that chapter 3 lets me use the grabbo arms to pick up objects, but in adding that, they just fully removed the square button option altogether. But you do still have to use the square button to place objects. It's so random. And lastly, the game does this weird thing with loading screens now, where when it needs to load a new area, the screen will just fade to black while you're still moving, kick you to a loading screen, and then boot back up exactly where you already were standing. It's kind of disorienting. I've never seen a game do loading screens like this. Why all these changes? Pretty much everything in chapter 1 and 2 were totally fine. Not perfect, obviously, but simple, understandable, and more importantly, they were the basis for how I, the player, formed my muscle memory with these controls. And once you got that muscle memory, it's hard to unlearn. All these changes just make things more clunky. Legit, the simple change of the sprint feature made some of these early platforming areas so much harder than they needed to be. This chapter is definitely not making a great first impression. Either way, we find a ringing phone that puts us in contact contact with a new character named Ollie, who we never see, and I have no clue who they are. But they seem to be on our side, so we follow their instructions and head to something called Playcare. We hop into this old rusty gondola car and... oh my god, where the hell is this? Is this hell? Did I die in that train crash? How do all these mascot horror locations keep one-upping each other in terms of how cartoonishly big they are? First you have the entire Security Breach Pizzaplex, then the Bendy Animation Studio having an entire town inside of it, and now Playtime Co. Straight up being built on top of the underworld. Anyway, we head to this giant dome thing, go inside, and... Oh, I get it. We're doing BioShock. Of course we're doing BioShock. All these games are just BioShock and Halloween costumes. Well, either way, this is Rapture. I mean Playcare, an underground on-site orphanage run by Playtime Co., the home of the smiling critters, and also where this entire chapter will be taking place. Ollie calls me and tells me that I need to redirect Catnap's freaky red gas in the Playtime gas chamber. But of course, it's not gonna be that simple. Machine don't work. So I run around for a while trying to figure out how to get the big gas machine working, and I find this chapter's first new mechanic, the purple jump hand. At the press of a button, I can swap from my green hand to this purple one that, when I press it to one of these matching platforms, sends me soaring through the air. This is fun, but also frustrating. Unless I'm doing something wrong here, you have to get a running start in order for these to launch you forward rather than straight up. But you also have to look down in order to aim the hand at the button. So you have to look forward, run, then look down, jump, then look back up, find your landing spot, look back down, and try to land where you need to go. And in higher stakes situations, this whole thing is just so disorienting and unreliable. Like even just here, where you have to use a moving platform to jump. The platform has rails on the side that your hand will auto-latch onto if you don't align your shot just right. Because yes, the purple hand still does all the same basic functions of the normal hand. And aiming that just right when you have to get a running start means you're almost certainly gonna miss, grab the ledge instead, and die. So yeah, a fun idea, kind of rough execution. Anyway, we finally get the gas machine running, but before we can divert the gas, all the power in Playcare just straight up goes out. Good, great, love it. And now it's up to me to explore the various different locations in Playcare, restart the power, and finish this job with the gas that I don't know why I'm doing. First up, we head to the main building of the orphanage, Home Sweet Home, to find the backup generator. And not a whole lot actually happened here. It was mostly a bunch of puzzle solving, which of course I'm totally down for, but the main thing here is that this is the first time we actually run into the gas, which once we breathe it in, makes us hallucinate a different game. Specifically PT. The game just becomes PT for a while. We're lost in another creepy grandma hallway that just whines and whines and whines. It's legit too dark to see anything, so I have no idea where I'm going. And every now and then you find an end table with the radio on it that plays lore. Like I said, it's PT. We hear weird, sketchy news broadcasts about Playtime co-founder Elliot Ludwig. We get more info about the orphanage. And of course, it's a freaky nightmare sequence, so we get ominous yet vague hints at our player character having made grave mistakes in the past that are now coming to haunt them as they return to Playtime Co. It's tradition. It's tradition. Then this crazy Huggy Wuggy monster climbs out of a TV. We get a jump scare that's literally too dark to see. The nightmare sequence ends, and we even get a gas mask, so the game never has to do that again. The rest of Home Sweet Home is a pretty standard puzzle-solving romp, no real threats. But we do get some snippets of lore here that seem to imply that the kids here at the orphanage were picked off one by one by Playtime Co.'s team of scientists for reasons that certainly have nothing to do with all the sentient living toy monsters roaming this place, or this bloody laboratory, or the toys that have blood in them, or that pink Huggy Wuggy character Kissy Missy sitting in a bedroom staring at a photo of a human child she almost certainly used to be. I'm sure it's all a coincidence. Speaking of Kissy Missy though, I do run into her and Poppy once I leave Home Sweet Home. They help me get the backup power going and also give me the rundown on this thing called the prototype, one of the earliest Playtime Co experiments that's basically running the place now. They're almost certainly the creepy Coraline hand that yoinked Mommy Longlegs' dead body at the end of the last chapter, and more importantly for right now, Catnap seems to worship them like a god. So, you know, we're learning, but, you know, the prototype problem is a bridge we're gonna have to cross when we get to it. Right now, the main problem is still Catnap himself and his sleepy time stink. We divert the power from Home Sweet Home to help power Playcare, and at that point, the whole game just sort of rinses and repeats. We went to a building in Playcare, solved puzzles, found a bit of lore, got chased by a spooky monster, then made our way back out to divert the building's power. And now we have to do all that a few more times. Once in the Playcare school, where our monster of the week is now this teacher who... I can't believe this. only moves when you aren't looking. Just like the endoskeletons in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. I gotta tell you, man, I'm getting real tired of this trope in games. It's scary for a little bit, but ultimately it just adds busy work. Oh no, she got too close to me. Let me turn around so she'll freeze, then run to the other side of the room to draw her away so that I can go back to doing what I was already doing. Scary. Okay, I mean, it's not that bad. I think Security Breach just kind of ruined this thing for me. Oh, hey. Ruin. I didn't even plan that. I did plan that reaction though. I wrote it in the script. Either way, we take care of the teacher pretty quick. Oops, sorry. And now the cycle basically starts again. On our way out of the school, we actually explore the outside of the Playcare Dome for a bit. What the hell is that? Find a new hand, this time an orange one that shoots flares, and eventually work our way into the Playhouse area where... Oh my god. Okay, that one got me. So, apparently, the Playhouse is absolutely infested with these little smiling critters dolls that sneak around through the walls and attack. And while you can't kill them or anything, you can use the flare gun to get them to back off. They swarm pretty easily though, so figuring out what to do here actually took me a while. It's a lot to manage all at once, man. But the deeper into the Playhouse I go, the more suspicious things get. Like, why are there jail cells here? What could these possibly be for? Hello, sir. You appear to be half. So this is Dog Day. He is the last surviving member of the Smiling Critters after Catnap went rogue. Although surviving is maybe generous, but he's alive enough to warn me about Catnap and tell me to run before a swarm of those little guys crawl under his skin and take over his body. Is really gross and cool. Which of course means it's time for another chase sequence. And this might be the worst one. All the doors around you are locked, so there's no immediate place to go. What you're supposed to do is head over to these planks of wood on the ground and wait for them to cave in. Yeah. Then, while in a completely new area you've never been in before, you have to find your way out while not only avoiding Dog Day, but also even more of the little guys too. And remember how I mentioned that these sequences have to use their environmental design to keep the player instinctively going in the right direction? And how one of the big ways to do that is through lighting? Well, how the hell do you explain this? The very first room of this chase, I go through this tunnel and see another tunnel up ahead with a light coming through it. So obviously I turn towards it, but it's blocked. Boom, dead. Turns out what I was supposed to do was know that this closed door on the left that I couldn't see at all was gonna open up and that I need to turn away from the glowing tunnel. I just don't feel like that's the kind of thing you can clock on your first playthrough. And remember, these chase sequences basically have no room for error. I mean, look. How did he do that? He's not even that fast. So I had to figure all of that stuff out basically before it happened. And of course, every time you die, you still have to deal with those way too long death screens. And then for some reason, you're reloaded into the game like 3 screens before the chase sequence even starts. In rooms where basically nothing happens. Just wasting even more time, man. Legit, it is really starting to feel like this game is actively working against me. But after several trial and error attempts, and honestly just looking up the path on YouTube, I escaped Dog Day, make it back to the main area, and enter the final area of Playcare. It's like the administrative office or something, I guess. I don't know. Honestly, I'm really starting to lose my patience with this chapter, man. You know, this segment was mostly forgettable though anyway. Besides this one puzzle room that took forever because this battery glitched out, and one last nightmare sequence that was cool, but wasn't playable. After that, we are finally able to finish restoring power to the Playcare and head back to the gas chamber where, of course, Catnap is waiting for us. One of the only times we've actually come face to face with the guy. And this leads to a first for the Poppy Playtime series, a boss fight. Catnap fills the room with that red gas, causing me to hallucinate, and the fight is on. So using all the various grab pack attachments we've collected so far, we gotta fend off Catnap long enough to let this machine over here fully power up so that it can, honestly, I'm not sure. I think I might have accidentally skipped that dialogue, but, you know, the fight is pretty interesting. First, you gotta use the flare gun to check if the Catnap creeping up towards you is real or a hallucination. If he is real, then you use either the purple or green hands to turn on these steam valves that block his path. Sometimes he also opens up this hatch in the ceiling, and you just gotta No. And you do that long enough, then the machine reaches full power and you can give Catnap a quick blast of electricity that makes him burst into flames. Alright, cool. But as he's recovering from that attack, the creepy Coraline hand of the prototype comes down through the hatch. It extends out to Catnap, who turns to his god, I guess, only to be skewered through the mouth and lifelessly dragged away. I feel like I was intruding there. Was I intruding there? You can be honest. Was I like intruding there? But finally, after all of that, I am able to finish diverting the gas, which opens up a different, much larger hatch in the next room. Just in time for Poppy and Kissy Missy to show back up and finally spill the beans on what even happened here in the first place. See, throughout this whole chapter, I've seen bloody graffiti on the walls that all talk about the same thing, something called the Hour of Joy. And Poppy gives me a tape labeled the exact same thing. What we then see is surveillance footage of the day that all these toys and experiments turned on the employees of Playtime Co., going on a merciless killing spree, slaughtering everyone, dragging their bodies down to the depths of the factory, and eating them. And Poppy says that to put things right, we have to kill the prototype. So we enter that hatch and take a big elevator down, leaving Kissy Missy behind. That is, until something goes wrong and Kissy Missy is attacked back up above. We can't see what's happening to her, and before we can get back up, the hatch closes, ending Poppy Playtime for now. And man, that chapter really lost me. Basically, everything gameplay-wise went from perfectly functional, if flawed, to actively frustrating. And that gameplay loop of solve puzzles, get scared, then do some trial and error chase sequence where you only get a split second to react before you die, rinse repeat 3 or 4 times, it got really old, especially when compacted by all the control downgrades. And that sucks, because this chapter had by far the best story revelations, hidden lore, and just straight scenes of pure horror out of the whole game so far. Like legit, chapter 3 has some of the best horror segments of any mascot horror game that I've played. But when the tangible gameplay sees that much of a downgrade, it's kinda hard to stay psyched about it. But ultimately, I do still like Poppy Playtime, and I am very curious to see where it goes. Chapter 4 is slated for sometime in January, and I just really hope that some lessons were learned in this chapter to make the next one way less frustrating. Wait, did they say they were eating people in the dark depths of the factory? Oh, I don't want to play the game anymore.